Hello everyone, myself Dr. Rajesh Zavde, Assistant Professor, DG College of Commerce, Satara. Dear students, today we are going to discuss about Business Regulatory Framework, Paper 1. In today's lecture, we are going to see the provisions of Indian Contract Act. As we know that Indian Contract Act was passed by British India and it is based on the principle of English common law. It is applicable to all the states of India. Now, it determines the circumstances in which promise made by the parties to a contract shall be legally binding on them. And this contract or the law which we know is very important. Each contract creates some rights and duties on the contractual parties and contracting parties. Hence, this legislation or law, being of skeleton nature, deals with the enforcement of these rights and duties of the parties in India. Now we'll see some important provision. According to Section 2, Subclause H of the Indian Contract Act, an agreement enforceable by law is a contract. Thus, for the formation of a contract, there must be an agreement and the agreement should be enforceable by law. All agreements are not enforceable by law and therefore all agreements are not contract. Some agreement need not enforceable by law. So here, my dear students, we need to understand that if we are talking about the contract, there are certain essential ingredient of this definition. So to understand contract, we need to understand what is an agreement. So there are aspects of an agreement. If we are talking about an agreement, so there should be an offer, there should be acceptance. If offer is accepted by the promisee, then that becomes an agreement. There should be consideration, that consideration should be valid consideration. So all these things are very important. Now we'll see example. An agreement to sell a radio set any be a contract, but an agreement to go to see a movie may be a mere agreement not enforceable by law. We'll see one illustration. If the agreement between the farmers and the tractor owner is giving force under the law, then it becomes a contract. Now we'll see what is an agreement. So according to Section 2, Subclause E of the Indian Contract Act, it defines that every promise and every set of promise forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. So here there are promise or promises which will form the consideration for each other, then that becomes an agreement. Now we'll see one example. In agreement, there is a promise from both sides. For example, A promises to deliver his watch to B, and in return B promises to pay a sum of rupees 2000 to A. There is said to be an agreement between A and B. A promise is a result of an offer, that means proposal, by one person and its acceptance by the other. For example, when A makes a proposal to sell his watch to B for rupees 2000 and B accepts his proposal, it results from a promise between the two persons. Illustration: such a promise between the tractor owner and the farmer, which involves a consideration of rupees 1000, is called an agreement. Now we'll see the definition of promise. What is promise? According to Section 2, Subclause B, it defines a promise. When the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent or consent thereto, the proposal is said to be accepted. A proposal, when accepted, it becomes a promise. And this is very essential in the contract. So, proposal or any offer or acceptance, this is very important. In proposal, there may be offer and acceptance from both the sides. So here, when the person to whom the proposal is made, they signify their assent or consent. A proposal, when accepted, it becomes a promise. Thus, when there is a proposal from one side and the acceptance of that proposal by the other side, it results in a promise. This promise from the two parties to one another is known as an agreement. The person who makes the proposal is called the promiser. The person who accepts such a promise is called the promisee. Now we will see the difference between contract and agreement. All contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contract, because agreements may be of a moral, religious, or social nature. For example, a promise to lunch together at a friend's house or to take a walk together is not contracted, because they are not likely to create a duty enforceable by law, for the simple reason that the parties never intended that they should be attended by legal consequences. So here in the agreement we have to see that whether that agreement is enforceable by law or not. So only those agreements are contract which are legally enforceable by law. Now we will see a very important aspect of our syllabus, that is essentials of a valid contract. According to section 10 of the Indian Contract Act, all agreements are contracts if they are made by free consent of the parties. Second, if they are made by person who are competent to enter into a contract. Third, that contract should be for a lawful consideration and lawful object. And finally, contracts are not hereby expressly declared to be void one. So these are the essential ingredients according to section 10 of the Indian Contract Act. So we have to understand each and every concept involved in the definition of an agreement and contract. So what is promise? Offer plus acceptance is equal to promise. What is an agreement? Promise plus consideration is equal to an agreement. Now what is contract? So contract means an agreement plus enforceability by law is equal to contract. That means in every contract agreement will be there, and that agreement will be enforceable by law. Now we will see in detail the essential element of a valid contract. So first is lawful offer and lawful acceptance. This is a necessity. When we talk about lawful offer and lawful acceptance, we need to understand according to Indian Contract Act section 2A, which defines offer as when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or abstain from doing anything with a view to obtaining the assent of the other to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. That means there are two essential elements of an offer. First, there should be an expression of willingness by the offerer to do or abstain from doing something, and second, such expression should be made with a view to obtaining assent of that other person. For example, Mr. A proposes to sell his motorcycle to Mr. B for rupees 30,000. Here, A's expression of willingness to sell motorcycle to B is his offer. So this offer should be a valid offer. What is that? An offer must be capable of creating legal relation. Second, the term of the offer must be certain, definite, and not vague. Third, an offer may be specific or general. Fourth, an offer must be communicated. Fifth, offer can be expressed or implied. Sixth, Offer must be made to obtain the assent of the other party. 7. Offer may be positive or negative. 8. An offer may be conditional. 9. Offer must be distinguished from an invitation to offer. So there are other essentials also. Likewise, for valid acceptance, acceptance must be absolute and unconditional. Second, an acceptance must be communicated to the offerer. Third, acceptance must be given within a fixed or reasonable time. Fourth, acceptance may be expressed or implied. Fifth, acceptance must be in the mode prescribed. Sixth, silence does not amount to acceptance. Seventh, only the offeree can accept the offer. The acceptor must be aware of the proposal at the time of acceptance. A general offer can be accepted by any person. And lastly, acceptance must show an intention to fulfill the terms of the offer. So here it is very important to understand the concept of offer and acceptance. So there must be a lawful offer and lawful acceptance of the offer. It results into an agreement. Second, intention to create legal relation. When we talk about agreement or contract, both the parties or either of the parties should come forward and prepared for the terms and the condition of the contract. It means that both the parties will be equally liable, responsible to complete the object of the contract. So here there must be an intention among the parties that the agreement should be attached by legal consequences and create legal obligations. Agreements of social or domestic nature do not contemplate legal relations. They do not give rise to a contract. For example, an agreement to dine at a friend's house is not an agreement intended to create legal relations, and therefore it is not a contract. There is one case, Balfour versus Balfour, where the defendant was a civil servant stationed in Ceylon. He and his wife were enjoying leave in England. When the defendant was due to return to Ceylon, his wife could not accompany him because of her health. The defendant agreed to send her rupees 3,000 a month as maintenance expenses during that time. They were thus forced to live apart. She sued for breach of this agreement. Her action was dismissed on the ground that no legal relation had been contemplated and therefore there was no contract. And that's why we can say that in the party there was no such kind of interest or intention to enter into a legal contract, and that's why this is not a contract. Second ingredient is lawful consideration. Third essential element of a valid contract is the consideration. This consideration is very important in the contract. Without consideration, there will not be any contract. The third essential element of a valid contract is the consideration. Consideration has been defined as the price paid by one party for the promise of the other. An agreement is legally enforceable only when each of the parties to it gives something and gets something. The something given or obtained is the price for the promise and is called consideration. But only those considerations are valid which are lawful one. So we have to understand the nature and the concept of consideration. Consideration is one of the essentials of a valid contract. Each contract must be supported by valid consideration. An agreement made without consideration is void and not enforceable by law. It is the foundation of a contract. The law enforces only those promises which are made for consideration. The term consideration is technical one and used in the sense of quid pro quo. What is that? Quid pro quo means something in return. When a party to the agreement promises to do something for the other party, he must get something in return. This something is called consideration. Now we'll see the definition of consideration. Section 2 subclause D defines consideration under Indian Contract Act 1872. What is that consideration? When at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing or does or abstain from doing or promises to do or abstain from doing something, such act or abstinence or promise is called consideration for the promise. For example, Mr. A agrees to sell his car to B for rupees 1 lakh. For as promise, A's promise, the consideration is the sum of rupees 1 lakh, while for B's promise, consideration is the car. So here consideration is the price paid for which the promise of the other is bought, and the promise thus given for value is enforceable. So this is the definition of Sir Frederick Pollock. Justice Patterson is also talking about consideration. According to him, consideration means something which is of some value in the eyes of law. It may be some benefit to the plaintiff or some detriment to the defendant. According to section 23, the consideration is unlawful if law forbids it, it is fraudulent, it involves or implies injury to the person or property of the another. That means there should not be any consideration like in the contract there will be injury to any person or property. Then consideration which is of a such a nature that if permitted it would defeat the provision of any law, that is not the consideration, valid consideration. And if consideration is immoral or is opposed to public policy, so all these considerations are prevented by law. Next very important ingredient, that is capacity of parties. The parties to an agreement must be competent to contract, otherwise it cannot be enforced by a court of law. In order to be competent to contract, according to section 11, the parties must be of the age of majority and second is of sound mind. These are the two basic conditions in a contract. So parties should be capable to enter into a contract. One of the essentials of a valid contract, that parties should be competent. Both the parties are entering into contract must be capable of contracting. Capacity means the competence of the parties to enter into a valid contract. Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act deals with the competency of the parties to contract. What is that? So here, every person is competent to contract who is of the age of majority according to the law to which he is subject, and who is of a sound mind and is not disqualified from contracting by any law to which he is subject. So here, for the the parties who are competent to contract should be a major person, should be person of sound mind, should be person not disqualified from contracting by any law. That means party should not be bankrupt or unsound mind and etc. According to section 3 of the Indian Majority Act 1875, a minor is a person who has not completed 18 years of age. In the following two cases, a person becomes major on completing the age of 21 years. One, where the guardians of a minor persons or property has been appointed under the Guardians and Ward Act 1890. Second, where the superintendence of a minor's property is assumed by a court of wards. So here it must not be disqualified from contracting by any law to which they are subject. Next ingredient is free consent. So my dear students, in the next lecture we are going to study the concept of free consent, which is a very important ingredient of a valid contract. So I hope that you have understood today's lectures. Thank you one and all.